the last episode of the Duck Boot mini-series. I'm cutting apart Sorel's hybrid boot to see what a hybrid boot even is, and thanks to Magic Spoon for sponsoring this video. So Sorel has quite a few different boots that have this rubber toe and this duck boot style, and they're really famous for their caribou boot that's like a heavily insulated winter boot that I want to cut apart eventually. But for this video, I wanted to do these ones because these are out of all the boots they offer, these are probably the ones that I would actually wear because I kind of like the flat look to them. They're that hybrid style where I think what they mean by hybrid is it kind of looks like a sneaker but built more like a boot maybe. I guess we'll see if we get it cut in half. But that's why I chose these ones. So now let's go over the boot information. So the brand is Sorel. The style is the Cheyanne Metro. The color I got is elk. They weigh 1 pound, 7 ounces, which doesn't mean a whole lot because I accidentally bought a size 13 instead of the 10-ish that I usually get. So it kind of throws all that off. They retail for $155 and they're made in China. So the leather on this, I wanted to mention that it looks quite different in person than it does on the site. The website actually looks a lot more, I don't know, a little bit more orangey, has a little bit more tan color hues to it. This in person has a lot more green in it, and it actually looks really similar to Thursday's Rough and Tough leather, I think is what it's called. So back to the leather. So this is a full grain chrome tan leather that has a really waxy finish, has some pull up in it. I don't know the exact thickness yet, but it looks like it's around that 2mm mark, which is pretty good thickness. The lining is a micro fleece lining, and I like this a little bit more than some of the other linings. It's just fleece. This feels like a little more premium, even though it's probably not. I just like the feel of it a little bit more. And one interesting thing is on the lining, there's a little bit of a pad on the inside that I guess kind of cups above your heel where that little indent below your ankle bone is. Kind of interesting. These are obviously too big for me to wear, so I didn't really get a feel exactly what that's for, but I thought it was kind of a nice little feature. The insert is just kind of a cheap EVA foam insert topped with that micro fleece lining. And then to the construction of this boot. So this boot is built more similarly to the Sperry's, where it's a multi-piece construction with a bunch of individual pieces cemented together, and less like the single piece injection molded rubber like on the LL Beans. But I think these Sorels are a little bit more sturdy compared to the Sperry's. They feel a lot more substantial. They've got a few more layers, at least from what it looks like. But one thing that I don't love about this and the construction of it is these other two boots that we reviewed, not really, I don't know about the Walmart ones, but they have a fully gusseted tongue. So even though the uppers might not be fully waterproof, if you do step in a puddle, you're not gonna have water slip in to your sock because there's a tongue there preventing it. Versus the Sorels here, their tongue is not fully gusseted. So you might be waterproof up to 4 or 5 inches, but if you step in a really deep puddle, that water is just gonna run right in through here and into your sock, which is a bummer, especially when they are advertising it as waterproof and impermeable because it's really only 4 or 5 inches up. As for the outsole, so this is kind of a unique outsole because it's so flat. I think they had to put pretty deep ridges inside of here because with a really flat boot, you have a tendency to sometimes hydroplane almost because it's so flat, you don't have that heel. So they have these different angled tread patterns that I assume help give you grip in different directions. I don't know if it actually does anything, but the intention's there. As for the guts of this thing, I don't really know what else is in here. I know there's 100 grams of insulation. I assume there's not a shank in here because it's so flat and it doesn't really feel like one. So I guess we'll see when we get it cut in half. Then finally to the fit, feel, and look of these boots. Like I said earlier, I really like the look of these boots. I think these big eyelets kind of give it a unique look. And I like the flat, slim silhouette because I think out of any boot company making these rain boots, or these duck boots, Sorel does a really good job of offering some really nice looking ones. You know, they don't look quite as much like they're trying to copy these. They kind of give them a new look. I don't really have much to say about the fit and feel because I bought the wrong size. So that kind of brings us to the next part, cut them in half after we talk about Magic Spoon. Well, you guys probably know by now I'm a pretty big fan of Magic Spoon, and I actually reached out to them to do this sponsorship because it's such an easy sponsorship for me to do, and it's a really easy one to recommend to you guys because it's good for you, it tastes really good, and everyone in the shop loves it. And the thing that I like about Magic Spoon, it's got 0 sugar, 11 grams of protein, and only 3 net carbs per serving. They come in 4 really good flavors: the fruity, the frosted, blueberry, and cocoa, which is missing again because anytime we get more cocoa, it's instantly gone and I've thrown all the boxes away. So go to magicspoon.com/roseanvil and use the code roseanvil to get free shipping on your first order, and you can order a variety pack so you can try each flavor and see which one you like the most. And the great thing is if you don't like any of them, which I doubt you will because they're all pretty good, especially the cocoa, they will give you your money back with no questions asked. So it's a great way to try a great product that's supporting the channel that I personally like, everyone in the shop likes, so check them out via the link in my description. Oops. Okay, we got it cut in half. Let's see what's inside. There's actually less to this boot than I expected, and the outsole is pretty thin in a few spots. Maybe that's intentional to give it a little bit more flex, but it's pretty thin in some of the grooves of those. But there are some things that I do like about this. I like how flat it is, so if you're a fan of a zero drop shoe where you don't want any heel, this is about as flat as they get. And I think the thing that stuck out to me most was how much they actually do seam seal everything around this boot. And it's not just a thin, small layer. They really cake it on there, which is good to see. That doesn't take away from the fact that it's not waterproof above the second eyelet because it's not a gusseted tongue, a fully gusseted tongue. So let's quickly go through the layers. Starting with the outsole, we got that natural rubber outsole, and then you've got a rubber layer that's glued to that Freudenberg knit layer. It's kind of like what you see in sneakers. That layer is stroble stitched to the lining around the rubber, and then above that you got another layer of that Freudenberg stuff, and that's stroble stitched to the lining. Then now you can see kind of that little ankle patch, that padding there with the insulation behind it. And then you also have a little bit of insulation here at the toe to keep your toes warm. And that's like one of the big flaws I saw with the Sperry's is there's insulation in the shaft of the boot, but there's none where your feet get coldest, in your feet. And above that, you got the leather we talked about, and that's pretty much it. Pretty simple boot, not much to it. So I think this being a hybrid boot, they mean it in a way that it's very similarly built to a sneaker. You know, if you looked at this cross section, you would assume this was a sneaker from here down. So if you're looking for a winter boot that feels like a sneaker, that you can walk in like a sneaker, this is a really good option. I think that's everything, and let me know what you guys think. If you own a pair, let me know what you thought of them or your experience with them, and thanks for everything you guys do. If you're not subscribed, consider subscribing because we're trying to get to that 300,000 subscriber mark by the end of the year so that we can give away all that stuff. We're getting close to the end of the year, and I don't know if we're gonna make it, so if you could subscribe, it would make a huge difference. Thanks. See ya.